citizenship to confirm with your privileged passport. So the privileged passport is, yes, it's used by citizens, but it can also be used by foreigners depending on the function that they carry out. But the issue of passports, as we are assuming by the information we heard from the New York Times, the assumption everybody making is about diplomatic passports. When you're talking about the issue of travelers and selling citizenship, selling citizenship is our ordinary passport. And this is work that we have to do. We're continuing to work on it. But we can tell you that, and DG Pearson, who is leading the work, can speak more to it. But we have significant problems in this area. Significant problems where people carry out criminality using Liberian ordinary passports.
Madam Minister, just before you continue, if you issue a service passport or diplomatic passport to a non-Liberian, does that passport carry the nationality?
Yes, sir.
So if a Nigerian was issued a service passport, a Liberian issued service passport to perform a certain service for Liberia, will a Nigerian nationality be stated in the passport?
Yes, sir.
So, because it's on the issues has been that, for example, international drug dealers have carried out diplomatic passports. You have heard about that. I've heard that issue. So, one of my questions is that other countries, do they do that as well? For example, the USA, Western countries will give people who are not citizens, the consul generals, and give them their passports.
There are countries that do. I don't have the list of countries. There are many countries that do, and I would like to ask DG Pearson if he wants to come in on the ordinary passport and
no diplomatic passports. Forget about the ordinary passport.
Yeah, but there are other countries that do.
Which countries?
I don't have the list with me, but there are countries that do.
I know you tell which countries do that.
Foreign Minister, know any other country that issued diplomatic passport to non-citizens of that issuing country?
Mm-hmm. I put the information, make sure the information is accurate.
Senator, we can confirm that so many other nationals do perform services for other governments, and we accord them diplomatic privileges when they perform those services.
No, sir. The question is not what we issue. The question is there any other diplomatic passport to non-citizens of the issuing country?
It's a common practice, and I can confirm that Sierra Leone does that. I can confirm that Nigeria does that.
Okay, that's what the senator wanted to know.
I said Western country.
I can also confirm
two countries that raising the issues.
I can confirm that this is done by the Australian government, and I can also confirm that it's done widely in Latin America for honorary consuls representing those countries abroad, and also individuals performing special diplomatic services or international services for those countries. So they gave them the passport, not conferring citizenship, but to facilitate their access to the various countries they are traveling to.
So if we don't give them passport, there's not nowhere else we can give them the loan. Must we give them passports?
Diplomatic passport gives you the access that you may need to travel, in particular, in different countries. For instance, if Senator Abochie is performing a service for the Liberian government and he's not, if John Brown, an American, is performing a service for the Liberian government, perhaps as an international consultant on investment elsewhere, and we need to facilitate his movements, diplomatic passport will do that better and faster than an ordinary passport that he may be carrying.
I want to buttress what you said about with a caveat. Now, Senator checked about European countries. I can't attest to that, but countries within the region, yes. But what they do that you don't do is that if you are issuing a privileged passport for a specific mission, After that mission, the passport is retrieved. They take that passport from you. It's a property of the state. It's not yours. Even in other governments, for example, in Ghana, after the election, people that had diplomatic passport that was still valid, they had to return those passports to the state, and they no longer occupy this position or no longer on missions. Unlike us, we get the passport for 2 years, it's your personal property. So I think maybe you might want to speak on that in addition to Senator Chair's concern.
I should go ahead. Okay, Senator, it's actually part of the passport regulation, and it was a common practice here in Liberia that anyone traveling with a privileged passport, official diplomatic, immediately upon your return to the country, you return the passport to the designated agency. But it's a larger problem of state capacity. Even it's not only the foreigners that may be carrying it. Even all officials of government carrying privileged passport immediately upon traveling to any other destination to perform services for the government, upon your return, you should turn that passport over. And according to the information we received, it used to be kept either at the airport or kept in the agency you work with or deposited with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But it has been difficult to control that, and it's a larger problem actually of the capacity of our state generally to do this. And senator, for instance, a senator traveling, holds a diplomatic passport, going to an ECOWAS function in Nigeria, returning, should immediately turn the passport over. How could we?
The senator is entitled to a diplomatic passport. If a senator is issued a 2-year diplomatic passport, and 1 year after the 2 years, the senator is not re-elected, the senator is required to return the diplomatic passport if your policy is not to issue diplomatic passport to a former senator. So now that the senator will come out every time and give you the passport, that information is wrong.
So I confirm that senators and officials of government are entitled to serve our privileged passports, and senators are entitled to diplomatic passports. But I was speaking of the practice before. The practice before was that when you use your privileged passport, perform a service for the government abroad, and you return, you turn the passport over. That practice broke down along the way, and we are open to restoring that.
Minister, when was that? When did public official have to travel and then take the passport back to foreign ministry? If they did not
Before the Civil War.
Before the Civil War?
Yes.
How old were you before the Civil War?
It's not about my person, it's about the information and the practice that we saw and we read in the records.
Mr. Minister, you are on oath to say the truth and nothing but the truth. This hearing is not a prosecution. It is a hearing for understanding and progress in the image and interest of our country. You want to check your information at what time in our history where public official assigned or issued diplomatic passport will travel out of the country, stay in that position, the passport will expire, and every time they travel, they have to turn it into at the foreign ministry. At what time did it happen in our history? Yeah, Madam Minister.
So we got this information from the most senior Ambassador Wallace. He said that was the time where this happened. But however, it is in the passport regulation. I think how we should take it today is as advice. I think we should take it as advice on how to strengthen the processes. I take it very positively. It is in the passport regulations according to legal. It's in the regulations. It's not being implemented, but we can start it from the perspective of those who are not Liberians, like the suggestion you're making. So I think these are things we can look at, because we always look at how we can strengthen the process. So I think the suggestion from Senator Snow is one for us to look at as a team, to go back and take it and say, how do we strengthen this now to make sure that our passports are not abused? We can always improve on the system.
What determines the validity of the passport as in terms of expiration?
The passport regulation.
If you issue a passport to somebody, service passport, for a special mission, and the person has done the mission and came back, don't you think it's fair enough or prudent to have that person turn that passport over because the mission for which they were granted the passport or issued the passport was accomplished?
Very good point. And in fact, Chief of Protocol, I had this conversation before about a group of people who had to travel for a particular purpose. They needed a service passport. And the point was, what discussing, can we just issue it for 3 months or this particular period? The difficulty we had with the passport company was they would have to reset the whole system and this and that. We struggled with it, and we ended up having to issue the passport for the same long duration. But we believe that when we start with new passports, which is something that we are working on right now, to start a whole new passport system, to issue new passports, the polycarbonate passports that are more difficult to mimic, more difficult to copy. When we start those, that's something we should be able to do, to be able to limit the time frame to specific periods.
Before we get back to Senator Abachi, when would that be or expected to be?
We have completed you want to come in, DGPSA?
Thank you, Senator. Presently, what happened is that we have a contract from another company, and this company is supposed to receive X amount of money for the expiration of that particular contract. So upon that expiration, then we can be able to move forward.
Are we expecting new passports?
We're expecting new passport.
As we complete different new passports?
Yeah, new passport, yeah.
And then we retrieve all of this.
Exactly.
Question to give opportunity to my colleagues, but to another point that you emphasize, which the minister also touched, the purpose of this hearing is not to interrogate you. It's for all of us to look at this, our own system, not starting with you, going back many years to see how we can improve the system and make our country better. So when we ask you questions now, we don't mean to interrogate you, please. That's what I want to start. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Thomas Yaya Nimla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Somebody got a mic on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I ask the question, I'd just like to piggyback on the issue of the diplomatic passport. Based on my experience, service passport has never been of popular use. Presidents recommend envoys for special mission, and we issue them diplomatic passport. And normally, as the minister said, the diplomatic passport is issued to the envoy, and that title is usually envoy or consultant for a specific purpose. Once that mission is over, according to the senators, the passport is supposed to be returned. But when you look at the level of relationships that are being established in government, from the envoy to the executive, that passport is normally never returned. They keep it. Those who are appointed as consulate generals, they keep their passports because they get diplomatic passports and they perform certain duties. A lot of the European countries, you have one ambassador serving for 5 countries, so the consul generals are there to assist the ambassadors as the ambassador perform his or her duties within those 4 or 5 countries. So the consul general gets a diplomatic passport. And as the time expires, the consul general comes to Liberia and his or her passport is renewed. And so we don't normally issue service passport except that. And I'm quiet because, as ministers and governments come in, policies change. So that's just part of what I do know about issuance of diplomatic passports. But a senator is always entitled to a diplomatic passport, as well as former foreign ministers are all entitled to diplomatic passport and not service passports. So, but my question now goes to the passport issuance. We now have, we now have diplomatic passports that are being issued. The last time the Minister of Foreign Affairs talked about the decentralization of passports from Monrovia to other counties, and I think we talk about Nima County and other parts of Liberia. How far are we with that?
I really do wish today, Senator, that I was saying to you that we've already opened it. It would have been great to announce that today, but unfortunately, we haven't started the decentralized passports. We'll start it soon. The challenge we have is linked to what we shared earlier about the passport and the fact that we need to change the passport. And if we start it now, before we finalize on the company to go forward with, then we will have to change the system again. Because if we do it now, we have to do it with the current company. We don't know whether the current company will be the one to win the bid going forward. So that's why we haven't implemented it. But we have had missions to the southeast. We've had mission to Banga, and we've had mission to the west, looking at where we can start the decentralized passport services.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Two more questions, please. We're looking at the Foreign Service Institute. Over the years, Foreign Service Institute trains students, and then those students are deployed within the ministry. And those who have developed experience within the ministry, they move up and they go to foreign service. I don't know whether that's the case now, because again, my experience, what I learned recently is that within the executive, people just recommend family members to go and become first secretary and second secretary, and those who have graduated from Foreign Service Institute, they are sticking around and they don't have the opportunity to use those experiences. So where are we now with the relationship between Foreign Service Institute graduates as well as those who are being appointed from the outside of the culture?
Thank you, Senator. One of the reforms that we are trying to implement is that those who go into foreign services should be trained from Foreign Service Institute. We know that there are specialized services that we require. For example, we're coming to do the Security Council. We need specialized skills that will not be about diplomacy. We need different skill sets outside of the diplomatic realm to support the Security Council. But outside of that, we're really pushing to make sure that those who go out have some Foreign Service Institute training beyond just 2 weeks, as I happened with one batch. We want it to be substantive so that those who go out with some knowledge and skills. Now, the truth of the matter is that we have to balance expectations, external expectations with the internal expectations, because we have people in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who should be going out. And that's what we're trying to do with this posting that we're doing right now. We're trying to make sure that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sends people out from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, while we also, attract additional talent from outside who've been to Foreign Service Institute. But we need to say categorically to everybody listening, please don't go to Foreign Service Institute and go through the course because you believe that once you go there, you'll be posted outside. We only have limited posts, and it is not to train people to go into foreign service. The FSI was created actually for the foreign ministry staff, for foreign ministry staff to be continually upgraded and upskilled. So we're working together with the team at FSI to make sure that we manage this expectation and as we work to continue to strengthen the foreign service.
I agree with you. I actually didn't mean that when you graduate from Foreign Service Institute, then you're standing on a line to go out. When you graduate, you'll be hired in-house, and the person who has developed the experience in-house will go out into the field. That's what I know Foreign Service Institute to be all about. The other thing is, you have said recently that there are people who have overserved. They stay long in foreign service, and there's a need for them to come back. When you recall them, do they stay on payroll or do you remove them from payroll?
So this is a very, very important question, a very complicated one with huge financial implications. Right now we're battling that, and we just asked the Policy Advisory Council to please advise us, to help us figure out how to solve this problem, because when you have somebody who's been in the US for 5 years, 10 years, making $4,000 they come back to be desk officer or research analyst or so forth, and the salary is $350. They want the salary they were getting in the United States. And prior to now, you had a process where the salary of the foreign service personnel was consistent, whether they were here or abroad. And when they're abroad, they will only get a foreign service, as they call, incentive or a stipend. Yes. However, when you give it to foreign service person, the diplomats out there as a lump sum, they see it as their whole salary. When they come back, they want the same salary to continue. We don't have the resources to do that. So we've asked the Policy Advisory Council to please help us with some advice on how we can put in place a policy framework that will be institutionalized. It will not be based on individuals, and that we can have it consistent. The budget will also have to reflect this, and the budget does not right now as it stands. So we don't have the budget, the fiscal space to be able to address the rotation as required.
Madam Minister, when you recall a foreign service official and not reassign him or her, they're still on your payroll, correct?
Yes, and I would like to ask DMA to come in to address.
And on the recall, some of the recall can say your service has come to an end. So at that point in time, we receive you and then forward you to NASCO for on-war support system for your retirement. There are others that come for you coming back to the mission, report to the mission for further assignment. We keep you on the payroll until you are given an opportunity to serve.
Job the recall determine whether the person remains on the payroll or not.
That's correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Senator.
Mr. DMA, you only send someone to NASCO when they turn 60. You only send someone to NASCO when they turn 60. So if you recalling 30, 40-year-old personnel, how do you forward them to NASCO? At that point, you also need to clarify what happens to them if the recall is not something that eliminates them.
We said depending on the record. For instance, if you're a 30-year-old person, when they recall you, it will be stated either come for further assignment. If you're a 60-year-old person, you will say your service has come to an end. Depending on the recall, we can assign you appropriately or pay you accordingly.
That needs to be reviewed. Minister, that needs to be reviewed. That one language that you send to the person that brings the person to Liberia cannot remove the person from payroll. Thank you.
Okay.
You want to take that under advisement?
Yes.
Senator Nyantwa and Nima County.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Minister. I have had a laundry list of questions for you, but your deliberation did, eliminate most of the questions. So I will be sticking to just a few of them for few clarification. I will begin with the issue of the communication to the U.S. government or the embassy concerning the purported list that Liberia is on. How long would that take to get an official response from them? And you also mentioned that you've officially seen it in the New York Times. Does that constitute an official publication from the U.S. government?
Seeing an article in the Seeing an article in the New York Times doesn't constitute a communication from the U.S. government. And let me state here, the ambassador, the team here at the embassy in Liberia has been very, very engaging, very supportive. We have a very good working relationship. We're on real time in terms of communication, and they are actually supportive. In fact, when I went to DC, let me just state this: I went to DC to engage the new administration. The support from the embassy was real time. I mean, they advised who I should meet, who they felt additionally we should talk to, and so forth and so on. So it's been very good. The communication to the embassy this morning, I expect to get right back to us. We'll be asking them for a meeting, and they have been good about that. We have a very fluid relationship in terms of communication.
You are the dean of the cabinet and a senior advisor to the president. We all are speculating and maybe just thinking ahead, and you are being proactive to think that part of if the list is true, maybe one of the issues that will constitute that list or give rise to that list will be passport issue or other issues related to your ministry. What is the rest of the cabinet doing? Or what have you advised the president with sector, the human rights issue, accountability issue?
that the cabinet is thinking out now to be proactive, so that within the time frame whereby the 60-day time frame, we can be able to fully respond if there will be an official communication from the U.S. government outlining things that we need to intervene.
So upon hearing this information over the weekend, the same day, I was able to meet the president and inform him about the information that was circulating, and told him that I was engaging with the embassy. And I've also been contacted. Justice and others have reached out. We're all discussing, and I told them we're waiting to hear back from the embassy. We've issued the démarche. Based on the démarche, we'll now know if it's true or not, number one, and number two, what's expected. But also, it's important, I think, to note here again that we should be careful not to jump ahead of ourselves to assume anything. We're assuming that the list is real. We're assuming the reasons why, and we need to just be careful not to run too fast, and then work along with the American government. They have been very cooperative, I must say. The same thing happened with the list for mass deportation. We engaged them the same way. They were very supportive. Liberia only had 49 people listed for deportation. It wasn't part of the mass deportation. And of the 49, only 24 had been before an immigration judge. We engaged with ICE on this, and we've been working with them. And they told us the way we engaged with them, they were very honest and said, like, the way Liberia is engaging is positive. And so when we met with the State Department, this was a response that we got. The way you're engaging is positive. Let's continue to engage in this regard. And that's what we're trying to do. The administration, however, we did have a cabinet meeting on the U.S. situation in general, the USAID funding situation. The president was very proactive. We firstly had a smaller cabinet discussion with smaller group where we looked at the USAID funding situation, and then we had a wider cabinet where we looked at all the sectors played a role. Thanks to the Ministry of Finance, Finance led the analysis, looking at the impact, and recommendations were made, and those are being studied now for implementation.
The Japanese grant, just quickly, if maybe the Deputy Minister to throw light on it. From all indication, the bidding process didn't conform to certain strict norms of accountability or proper procedure. Why don't we just cancel it and do a new one? What's the rush? If it's not done properly, we cannot be compromising and hiring 3 companies. When something goes wrong, who do we hold responsible? The 3 companies?
Senator, I confirm that the bidding process was fully in line with the PPCC and the management guide. The minister asked last year that subsequent projects of the Japanese grant, a subsequent consignment, be opened up for public bidding. Previously, it was closed bidding to only a list of major rice importers submitted by the Ministry of Commerce. And we have several other rice importers, major rice importers. That list doesn't include any Liberian company. So the minister said, let's open this up. And it was opened up. Only 3 companies applied. Northwestern Commodities, which based on their documents, they identified as 100% Liberian owned, and 2 other companies, Futa Corporation, United Commodities Incorporated. These are the 2 companies that have been managing this project over time. The Northwestern Commodity offered the highest, $12.50. Futa Corporation and United Commodities offered the same, 11.8. So there were even suggestions that there might have been collusion between the 2 companies and the Secretariat. Notwithstanding, following the evaluation process, the procurement committee decided that given that this company is a new company and it is a Liberian company offering the highest, let's start with them with 20%, and the 2 original companies 40-40. So the evaluation committee initial assessment was that this company is new, is a Liberian company, doesn't have experience in rice marketing, and doesn't have substantial warehouse. But then the procurement committee made a follow-up to find out that they actually have warehouse and they have been in the business before, not as a major importer as the Japanese counterpart, as the counterpart value fund secretariat had indicated initially. So the procurement committee recommended to the steering committee, which is the highest decision-making body, to decide whether the 3 companies should be accepted. And the recommendation of the procurement committee was that 20% to this Liberian-owned company, which is just applying for the first time, 40% to Futa Corporation, 40% to United Commodities Incorporated. So this was decided by the Inter-Ministerial Steering Committee.
Law, is that allowed?
Yes, the PPCC is part of the Inter-Ministerial Committee. The PPCC was
I know
communicated.
steering committee from the PPCC law. Does the PPCC law support such a tripartite arrangement over bid that should have been bid for by a single individual?
Well, previously, 2 companies have been applying, and the 2 companies have been implementing the project together, with one carrying 60%, another one 40%. So multiple companies have been doing this project. There was another time when there were also 3: UCI, FUTA, and SWAT, SWAT. But then over the last 7 to 8 years, it's been only the 2 companies. So it is allowed under the law that companies can carry different lots. And every step of the way in this procurement process, the PPCC was informed, and they gave their no objection. And they were even part of the Inter-Ministerial Steering Committee that approved the recommendations of the procurement committee.
Yeah, my inquiry, this new company you're talking about, according to your staff who was on OKFM, you said this company is partly owned by the managing director of the port. Can you speak to that?
The records that were received indicate that the company is owned by a Ducle, and the managing director of the Freeport initially had shares in the company, and in 2024 he divested his share. The records are there. He left the company. The articles were amended, and we cannot make that judgment. We only make the decision based on the records that were available. His shares were divested before this bid was announced.
Woman. Mr. Deputy Minister, on the overall, is there consignment from time to time? Is it free or a loan?
It is a grant. So which means it's not a loan, you don't have to pay it back, but it's conditioned upon the government of Liberia using this rights, monetize it, use the proceed, and invest in an economic activity. So there are so many economic activities that this grant has been used for
No,
over
one
the
minute,
last
no.
15 years.
Hold on. So when the rest is sold, where does the money go?
Goes into projects, and the projects are selected by the steering committee.
The Japanese government gives this consignment of rice to Liberia as a grant. It's for the country, right?
Yes,
So when you sell it, it's for Liberia.
indeed.
That means the money generated therefrom, the public money,
Yes.
is it deposited through the consolidated account for it to be appropriated according to law?
So the arrangement under this grant is that the governor of Liberia every year will establish an account, a special escrow account at the Central Bank of Liberia, where the company selling the rice will deposit the government share of this money after their overhead and administrative costs. And the steering committee will decide on an economic returns project, send this proposal to the Japanese that, number one, we have, for instance, we have 1 million, and these are the projects we want to implement. Following the approval of the Japanese, the government agencies will go in the field to do the implementation.
So if our budget is $10,
Yeah.
and you realize $2 from that sale, it got nothing to do with the budget.
Yes, because the condition of the aid is that the aid must be used to finance projects that are not budgeted for under the Liberian government's budget. That is clearly spelled out. Economic
So
investment
only the
projects.
executive have everything to do with that rights issue or that consignment issue. The executive alone decides the expenditure with the Japanese government. But when something goes wrong, then they say the government of Liberia and every branch of government gets whipped. Yeah, you get on. You get on. Yes, we want to get something clear here.
So
They come in the name of Liberia.
yes,
Almost like use it intervention. It doesn't come through the national budget. We do not appropriate it. Only with the executive and NGOs. But then it comes in the name of Liberia, and then the entire government gets the.
so under the arrangement in which the government of Japan provides the aid, the the Liberian government uses this monetized rice, use the proceed to invest in economic activities in the communities. In this light,
Senator Snow,
Project selected-
Senator Nukwe.
Chairman, the foreign minister, your boss, in her intro or overview to us, she said the proceed is used for the president's discretion. Let her read it. That's what she told us. She never talked about any economic activity. Talk about what in her briefing. She said the proceed of the rice, the president's agenda, that's how that money is expended. Ask her. Let her read it.
Madam Minister.
So what I said, and sorry, it's not written. I was speaking extemporaneously, but what I said was that the funds go to the priorities of the president's agenda. So, for example, the arrest agenda for inclusive development is our development agenda. And what they have indicated, the Japanese have indicated, is that projects that are not budgeted for, that can be identified from the president's priorities, the agenda, which is our AID. In that regard, it's not personal agenda; it's the development agenda. That is what, just to clarify. But the condition is for economic benefits. So last year, the Banga market and in previous years, different projects have been implemented.
so I can just list some projects which the Japanese fund has implemented over the last few years. The Douala market, the Omega market, the Banga market that was dedicated last year, and 3 bridges, including the bridge connecting Tala in Grand Cape Mount County with another district. So several other ones. And now currently, the current one is financing the construction of a wood workshop in Nimba County.
So
to
in
facilitate the furniture market.
those projects have been funded by public money generated by the Japanese grant.
Correct.
Can this committee get a full listing, accountability listing of all of these projects that this funding has intervened, including the Douala market,
Yes.
including whether the sport park is involved, and any other thing? A full listing of all of those. Senator Nukwe wanted to intervene. From that, we'll go back to Senator Nyatwine to conclude his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to inquire from Deputy Minister Nye or the Minister and the members and other members of the team. There were 3 bidders for the sales of the rice. The newest bidder that is fully owned by Liberian bid for $12.50. And then the 2 companies that have been dealing with the ministry and selling the rice paid for $11.80. You decided that the newer company or the newest company should take 20% share. I'd like to know at what price are you selling? Is it the $12.50 or is it the $11.80?
So the government intention, because this rice is only going to be on the market for 6 months, you normally don't want to have rice on the market for more than 6 months. And the government intention is actually to sell this within 4 months. So the government sells at $11. That's actually the price the government normally will sell for. So that at the end of the day, this rice, following the markup price or administrative costs, logistics, at the end of the day, the end user price will be a bit under the regular market price. because this is a different type of rice that is coming to the market. It's not the regular rice. So you have to make it, and also it is a grain aid. You have to make it competitive, a bit under the standard market price. So the end user price we are looking at the end of the day should be around 1650. Because
let me just follow up. You had already predetermined that the price of the rice should be $11, according to you.
yeah,
But then why did you put up a bid? Well, you already predetermined that the price of the rice should be $11. What's the essence of putting it up for a bid? Or did you indicate in the bid document the ceiling?
so there is a price structure, a price analysis, what the government price will be, what the distributor price will be, and what the retail price will be. And that pricing structure has long been determined at the Ministry of Commerce, and it's what this project has continuously followed.
That after all of the bidding processes, you decided to give the rice to the companies at the price of $11. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But I say the ministry has to approve it. So all that bidding thing was just for formality.
No, it was not for formality. It was to. It was not formality. It was to select the most responsive bidder. And previously, only 2 companies have been bidding for this rice. Well, sometimes 1150, 11, but always to target a way that it goes in, it becomes competitive, that it is sold under the regular market price.
You put a ceiling already before you open the bid.
No, that was not. The price was not provided. This was an in-house discussion. It was not in the newspaper that this is what you need to bid for.
So who are the beneficiaries of that particular rice? Because it's $11, that would make the market more money. Who are benefiting from this one?
No, the $11 is not the end user price. The end user price will be somewhere around $16.50.
So in effect, actually, that donation is to benefit the business people who you select as ministry. Because if a donation comes to the country in that quantity, and you're selling it to the businessman for $12, and he's going to sell it for $16, $17, he's actually benefiting.
No, it's not that way.
How is that way? Which way?
The government is giving to a wholesaler who is giving to a distributor. So there are different price margin along the way. So from company X taking from the Freeport of Monrovia, if they are taking from the Freeport of Monrovia at $11, they are taking it out considering logistics, trucking, warehousing. So they take it from the Freeport of Monrovia, give to distributors. And the distributors also have the warehouse. Every price is marked, how much they must charge for this.
Why do we always make things so difficult, all the complicated, all the...
It's because of the laws that are on the books. It's not complicated. It's not difficult.
Which law say when Japan or any country give us donation as in consignment of rice, that we should sell it like that? Which law? Tell me.
What this project has a management guide that details all of the processes.
Which law, sir?
It's a guide, not a law. It's an administrative regulation that was developed specifically for this project.
Developed by the very people who are administering.
Well, under their fiduciary responsibilities,
yeah.
We made this management guide, and so we intend to just implement it until we can review it.
So,
we are open to reviewing this.
We're taking note of all of this. Senator Nyato, please conclude. I want to follow one more message.
Look, it's always been. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding back to me. It's becoming a normal practice of the community to always have a lot of interjection when I'm questioning. I think I will end on the Japanese rice issue by saying, just reiterating that there should be a comprehensive listing given to us, not only for last year or for the few projects that you named, but several other projects, because this grand issue, the problem with it, precede you exactly. There were times that people who serve in your position and project managers were in trouble for this in the past. So you claim our attention with the good work that you guys are doing so that we can set the record straight on this issue moving forward. My last question will center around travel. Probably the Chief of Protocol could answer that last one quickly concerning November. What qualifies one for November? And how long does it take, for example, for a government official or a citizen traveling on a government function, through the visa process of November? Who qualifies, and what type of invitation or function qualify you for November?
So, Senator, can I please just make one statement in relation to the last point I made on the rights before I hand over to the Chief of Protocol? Okay. One of the challenges we faced as a new administration is getting, I would say, cooperation from the Secretariat of this rights, who felt that it's been their entity for the longest time and nobody should change anything. And I'm glad the discussion is happening because this is something we've been trying to address. And the reason why we're at this place is because the rights is already almost here. And we needed to make sure that we don't do anything that will cause us to lose the opportunity. However, as Minister Nyen said, we really are open to reviewing the management guide. The management guide was developed, I think, two or three terms ago, governments ago, administrations ago, or something like that, or 4 administrations ago, in 2011 or so. We also feel it needs to be reviewed. We've raised this with the Japanese, the fact that we don't like the way that it's been operated separately and in a way that, we just felt the system needed to be strengthened. That's why we had it even put under Minister Nye and try to get some involvement. It's not perfect, but we do believe it needs to be reviewed. We need to look at it and so that we strengthen it. The Japanese are concerned that they are being smeared. They raised this. They feel that they've been helping Liberia, and all of a sudden they are being smeared wrongly, and they don't like it. And so we also have a responsibility to the Japanese to make sure that they are comfortable that what they are doing is helping the Liberian people. So I just want to register that we are open to that engagement for us to discuss how we can strengthen this process so we maximize it. Chief of Protocol, please respond to the NOVABA.
NOVABA are issued to officials of government traveling on official matters, or should be traveling on official matters. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs gets these requests from entities like the Senate and other government entity requesting, and we do ask that invitations are attached with the details, and then we process. We always informed applicants that most embassies would prefer it 2 weeks before your travel date that the requests are made.
To you, how long does a NOVABA take to be processed to the embassy? Because that is an issue, and don't ask me how do I know. I've been involved with it. It's been a little bit good in recent times, but my prior positions in government and my experience has shown that you practically need to walk yourself through your own NOVABA in the ministry most of the time. How has it improved?
As far as I know, NOVABA don't stay more than a day in my office. The request don't spend more than a day. It stay more than a day if there's an issue and the expediter is giving the information about the issue. Sometimes they won't come back to you all to tell you what the issues are, and then it delayed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, you back. Thank you.
For protocol, we'll hold a whole session with your department. The protocol is under the Committee on Foreign Affairs. The protocol of the Republic needs some serious workshop, so to speak. It is a very concerning issue as well. But I think this hearing will want to focus on this visa issue and other stuff. So we'll take a whole time with your department another time.
We are open to that.
Senator Amara Corner. Senator Badikwa, then Senator McGill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Madam Minister, thank you for the overview that you've given this committee. My main questions have to do with our relationship with the United States, perhaps the primary partner in the bilateral space for Liberia, but also very traditional in many ways historically. But before I go there, on the issue of the Japanese grant, I'm glad that you intervened, and I want to encourage you and your team to consider reform, because the time the grant was consummated, that period in our post-conflict reconstruction and today are far from each other. So that's one. Secondly, with the disruption in U.S. foreign assistance to the world, including our country, this is every penny counts. Their utilization, their reprogramming to support the most important programs in the IRS agenda for inclusive development, which is the country's 5-year development agenda, is critical. So I encourage you to push for reforms with the Commerce and everybody on that steering committee. Having said that, I want to come back to the big news today. Like you rightly said, the New York Times reported, and they cited a leaked memo. Now, Madam Minister, we cannot overlook anything that President Trump and his administration, or whatever we hear about them in America today, because anything can happen. Anything. He's disrupting the United States systems of governance since the end of World War II. So Liberians listening to us today, particularly those who might be thinking about traveling, maybe 90 days from now, should they be worried that after 60 days, they might go to the embassy and say, no, you can't go to the United States? I think we need to answer that. And I'm coming to that question from the backdrop that when the very Liberian people changed regime in 2023, in a transitional period, very United States complained about our passports. You'll recall, me and you and our committee. It was about passport, foreign affairs, central bank, finance, those three agencies. The Americans had serious intelligence about the way business was conducted in those three agencies. Other reports showed that they were right about the central bank at some point. And then the diplomatic passport issue, you took some action. Why are we still talking about diplomatic passports today, 1 year later? That was a question.
So, thank you, Senator. When I started, I shared with you a list of actions that we've taken over the last 1 year. And many of those actions have been with the U.S. in seeking their support, in seeking their cooperation to strengthen our passport system and to strengthen, most importantly, the intelligence system to support the passport issuance. And I shared that we engage with the security personnel, including the CIA. We've been engaging very deeply, and this engagement is still ongoing. We will continue to have a conversation on passports until we fully change passport and put in place a brand new system, and it's work in progress. But I want us to note all that has been done. a lot has been done. And I want us to know that because of those conversations that you and I had, Senator, during that transition, that's why immediately within 2 weeks of taking office, 2 to 3 weeks of taking office, we started with the US and started engaging them on the issue of passports. On the issue of the visa restriction, should Liberians expect in 60 days they won't have visa access to America? I don't think so. I'm giving you my honest opinion. Why? Because I believe that with all that we've indicated in the demarche to the US to remind them of all that we've been doing, discussing with them, been doing, and so forth and so on, I believe that list maybe came from a place, if it's true, if the list is true, a place of lack of adequate information, all the steps we've taken. And that's why we're sharing the steps with them, informing them, for example, the steps we've taken on ICAO, PKD. I'm not so sure they were aware of the ICAO steps we are taking, but also we need to be aware of the issue of overstay. Now, this is something while we're discussing the security issues, the US government continues to remind us about our overstay rate in the United States, including from officials with privileged passports that go to the US and do not return, go and overstay, and it's causing the country as a whole a problem. Our bigger problem on visa is not from the passport. Our biggest problem on visa is overstay. And we have to acknowledge that problem and work on it together. Now, we've gone to the extent of having meetings with the consular section to understand how they define overstay. We asked them, how do you define overstay, so we can educate our population? They indicated to us that when you do your interview at the consular section and you tell them you're going for 2 weeks and you're going to, for example, Philadelphia for 2 weeks and you're coming back. Of course, when you get to the border point of entry, you are given 6 months. And so a person is told, you have 6 months, and they go with the thinking that they have 6 months. They may have a relative in Atlanta, one in Minneapolis, getting a ticket to go and visit. They end up staying maybe a month. But they still come back within 6 months. For us, from our perspective, it's not overstay. They told us no. It actually means that person shouldn't be going back to the US because they're not credible. Because when they came to the window, they told us they were going for 2 weeks. And regardless of how much they're given at the point of entry, they should have come back, or they should have indicated to us that I went for the 2 weeks, but I had X, Y, and Z. And so I'm indicating to you that I'll be staying a little bit longer than what I told you, that they go by that in terms of going back to get a visa the second time. So you find many people are denied visa when they go back. They say, but I've been to America already, I've been denied. They told us it's because of issues like that. So it will require for all of us to work together to strengthen the visa situation with the US. But overstay is a major problem.
Senator, corner 1 second. Right on that visa issue, Madam Minister, when doing your confirmation, we ask you, Senator Snow raised that issue and we buttress it. And we got to be very, very courageous with some of these things. We are leaders of this country, and we should not shy away from standing up for our people. At the U.S. Embassy here, the treatment our people have to honor go here at this embassy is dehumanizing. It is completely out of order, complete lack of respect for even the human dignity. And I must state it here today as a senator. You call our people, they are outside the gate, water rain beating them or not, and all that thing. Prime Minister, we raise this issue. What are you doing about it? Every time America put on one paper, the whole country shaking. When are we going to shake for America to do the right thing for us as well?
Senator Dillon, you are right in your recounting of the events. You and Senator Snow, they raised this to me, and we had several meetings with the US where we raised this issue with them. They informed us that they had erected I would call it an area they erected, like a booth or something. They told us that they had responded to our request. People were not using it. We raised the issue as recent as last week, and I don't have the date handy. But last week, I asked for a meeting with the US, and we raised this issue again and said that we still are not satisfied with the conditions. Not only that, we went further besides the condition under which people wait, and we share with them. We know that this is how they structure everywhere around the world and so forth. But we have a concern about it. We also raise the way people are treated at the interview, how people are disrespected at the interview and so forth. We raised it to the U.S. ambassador and with the advisor on political and economic affairs. And the same day, I received a response from the ambassador last week that they had taken it up with the consular section and they are looking into it and they will revert. I just want to encourage you and the Liberian people that we are working on this issue. It's something that we've addressed head on, and it's something we'll follow up. As recent as last week, we had a meeting with the U.S. Embassy, and it seemed the ambassador came back to say they are looking at it. We gave them an example of how a representative from this country was treated. Representative gave us a complaint. He went to be interviewed, and they looked at his ring. His ring was Masonic, and then they said, what is this? He explained what it was and what is it about, and so forth. Bam, 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 you're denied. We shared that example, and we said the level of disrespect that some people receive, and we also talk about the fact that our officials should be treated with respect. They should be interviewed in a private area, because you cannot be having our legislators, just as recent as last week, we shared this. Our legislators cannot be standing there with their constituents and you asking them personal questions and so forth. And so we raised this. They indicated to us, that they reconfirmed to us that there's a way where, people of certain class, I won't want to use the word class, but certain status will be given a private interview. So we are addressing this issue, Senator.
But Minister, does it have to be a representative or senator or minister?
No.
The ordinary citizens are also treated the same. Everybody pays that visa fee, especially if you go on a private visit. The visa fee is paid by a senator. The visa fee is paid by a representative. The visa fee is paid by a minister. The visa fee is paid by the ordinary man down there. Let's fight for a holistic approach to this whole thing when it comes to treating our people with some level of decency and respect at the embassy. Senator Corner, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Still on the diplomatic passport. Madam Minister, can you assure the Liberian people, can you assure this committee that our diplomatic passport is not in the hand of any criminals or in the hands of any citizens from countries that are blacklisted on the U.S. list for criminal activities, including narcotics and human trafficking and otherwise? Can you assure us of that?
I can assure you that this team is working diligently to make sure that every diplomatic passport we issued for foreigners is vetted by the National Security Agency. No passport is for sale. And we are working to look at the intelligence aspect to identify if there are possibilities that our passports are being duplicated somewhere, and that's why we have to change the passport. I can guarantee you that this administration, there's no passport for sale, and every one that we're issuing, we're getting the check with NSE.
Thank you for that. Then my next question would be then, our country has been the focal point of the United States disenchantment with foreign aid. It seems that our historical relationship with the U.S., based on the president's utterances, Mr. Elon Musk's utterances, posting about Liberia, every opportunity they had to justify the dismantling of USAID, Liberia was mentioned. As a country, building on Senator Dillon's argument about the treatment of our people, this could be misconstrued and cause serious reputational damage to our country and our image for something that we didn't do, because U.S. money doesn't come through our budget. So, as our chief diplomat, how do you plan fixing that? How do you plan fixing that? What is being done here in Monrovia with the embassy to provide clarity to the White House and the State Department that now has some control over USAID? And in your opinion, as our chief diplomat, do you think it's about time that we redefine our relationship with the United States?
So what I would say is that the United States has made it clear what their foreign policy direction is under the new administration. There are 3 criteria that the United States have made it clear that they use to determine how they engage with countries. The action they take, will it make America safer? Will it make America stronger? And will it make America more prosperous? If they don't fit those 3 categories, they're not going to do it. Now, the actions that they've taken with USAID, there are some windows that we've identified, such as waivers for what you classify as humanitarian action and so forth. What we've been able to do is to work along with the team here. We've been pushing this, and thanks to the ministers who head these sectors, they have not been sleeping on it. And so for health and education, agriculture, all the sectors where this is a major issue, they've been working with the US as well directly. And we've asked for waivers on things. Okay, but waivers have been requested. We work together, so that's why I have to say it. We work together.
Define the waiver.
So, for example, a waiver was asked to the medical store because you know the US has been supporting essential drugs and the management of the medical store. HIV drugs through PEPFAR, we've been reliant on this. So some of these have been looked at favorably, and this is work in progress. Also, the military-to-military cooperation continues unhindered. But to answer your question more directly in terms of what we are doing, we're continuing to engage, and that's how come I have this information, because we are engaging. We are still pushing and pressing. Why Liberia has been used as an example for some of the cuts they're making, I cannot tell you that. I do not have the answer to that. But what I can say is what's within my control to do, and that is to continue to engage diplomatically, backdoor diplomacy, and so forth, for us to continue to work, including with those on the Hill and other interlocutors who have an inroad into the new way of working now. In terms of redefining our relationship, we are right now working on a new foreign policy statement. We have a draft that's now with the ambassadors. The Policy Advisory Council has helped us with a draft. It's with the ambassadors for their input, and it would then go to the committees for the two committees for input before it goes back to the cabinet as a cabinet paper for approval. The foreign policy statement will be now saying this is how Liberia wants to proceed in terms of our relationships around the world, and it's about how we engage, and that will determine who we engage with. That will determine what's in the best interest of the Liberian people. And so what I can say to you is that we are working on it, and I'm not saying it just superficially. The document is actually with the ambassadors now for their input. It will come to the two committees for input before it goes to the cabinet. And in redefining relationships and how they should be redefined, we'll have to do that. The president, who is the chief architect of our foreign policy, will have to make some decisions. But I can tell you that we are looking at the best interests of Liberia and Liberia's positioning and how Liberia engages. Concrete example, for some people have understood, some people have not understood, but we recently had to do a vote for the last 3 years that has been Liberia standing with Ukraine. Our president, the chief architect, had a call with President Zelensky and pledged his support to Ukraine, and we've been supporting along with other partners, including the US. On the eve of the vote, we were asked to take a different position. The decision was made that we'll continue to stand where we said we'll stand, because Liberia is a sovereign country that's standing there based on principles. And so the accusation that people make that Liberia has no foreign policy position, it just is a puppet flying in the wind, we're trying to correct that to make sure we define it more clearly, to make sure that the Liberian interest is preserved.
Madam Minister, I'm sorry.
Liberia co-sponsored the Ukraine resolution, as we have been doing the last 3 years. We've been voting with Ukraine, and Liberia did the same thing this year to show consistency and commitment to the principle that we agreed to.
Yeah, I was going to say, back on this redefinition of our relationship with the United States. I mean, you recall our Independence Day orator, that speech really demonstrated to all of us, the leaders of this country, that our citizens are yearning for a redirection in our engagement with the United States. To a large extent, they don't feel it. I think in every crisis, there are opportunities. In Mr. Trump's disrupting the US government, which is good for them, he's protecting his country, he's slapping other countries with tariffs and so on.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
What's the order there? I think it's important. What's the order?
Why you, Senator Corner, listen to my point of order. I think Senator Corner's use of certain words repeatedly of disruption. And my point of order is that there should be much more different word used other than disruption.
I said, Mr. Trump.
I said disruption. Yeah. No, that's the issue. I got pieces that I don't use. Don't tell me that my point of order was valid.
Well,
The word disruption does not sit well with me about a foreign president.
Thank
I
you,
have to raise a
Mr.
point of order.
Thank you.
Whether it's a disruption or a different policy.
No argument about this. You made an order, and the order is overruled. The
Yeah, but
gentleman
then
from
let other
Beth,
people
the
respect
gentleman
my order,
from
and the
Babolo
gentleman from Babolo continue.
is
Go ahead and start talk.
free to continue.
You know, sometimes we have disruptive businesses like Tesla, like the same thing that we have in Liberia now, Mr. Elon Musk company. How you call it? Starlink is disruptive because it gives last mile connectivity to villages and so on, if you can use it well. So it's not a bad word, Mr. Senator. So Mr. Trump is disrupting the way the American governance system works for the benefit of his country. And those of us who have relied on the United States support for centuries since our independence, Madam Minister, we need to start thinking about what to do over the next 4 years. It's important. I just wanted to say that. So in that light, I want to ask you, what is our relationship with China? We also heard about re-establishing relationship with Russia. How is that going?
So, Mr. Senator, thank you for the question. Has been further clarified as being a question. The response to that is it is work in progress in terms of redefining our foreign policy direction. We are redefining that now. Our relationship with China has upgraded our relationship to a strategic partner over the last months. And this means it provides more opportunities for us to engage deeper in relation to funding. The United States of America is a traditional ally of Liberia, and we cannot forget that. The United States of America has had long-reaching relationship with Liberia. How we define that relationship going forward should be based on how we see the benefit to the Liberian people, but not forgetting the fact that they are a traditional ally. We know for right now, a lot of the relationships are about transactions. We know that a lot of the issues are about business and so forth and commerce. And we had a discussion with the State Department when I was there recently with Minister Kone. And we shared with them that we want to have the Liberia-US dialogue. It has to have a political aspect, it has to have an economic aspect. And what we discuss is that the State Department and the Assistant Minister, sorry, not Senator, Assistant Minister Christiana Kone, she was part of the delegation. But what we discussed is that we need to have that dialogue. It needs to be a frank dialogue. State Department will come to Liberia, and we talked about it being in July, where they'll have more clarity on their side in terms of where they stand with aid and all of that. And in that dialogue here in Liberia, we'll also be having a Bridge to Prosperity program in terms of economic diplomacy. We're looking at an investment roundtable with some U.S. companies at the same time. So they're looking at what makes them prosperous, what makes them stronger and safer. We're looking at how we develop Liberia. We find the common ground within that, and we engage around that. But I cannot sit here today, not being the chief architect of foreign policy, to say that this specifically is how the relationship will be shaped. I cannot do that, but it's work in progress.
I asked the question about Russia, and I want to go on record. For those who are following the Ukrainian and the Russian negotiation to end their conflict, we all know the line of the United States. We appreciate the United States traditional partnership with us. We appreciate that. But I just want to emphasize again that as an independent country, there are opportunities in these dynamics where we see that the U.S. president wants peace in Ukraine, but the Ukrainians are pushing back because there's no security guarantee that Russia will not do what they have done to them. And we see some flexibility on the U.S. side on that. So being supporters of Ukraine in this war, I think our country needs to be open to that as well. We should not limit ourselves in this new President Trump's war order. I said President, Mr. Senator. President Trump's war order, that Liberia does not become a victim of an invincible geopolitics. I really think that your foreign policy, new direction, should think about that. Which brings me to your economic diplomacy. And when you appeared before us here for your confirmation, you talk about this. We were all happy about this. We know that one of your predecessors, Minister King Akelari, she had development diplomacy. To me, that was a big success. I had the privilege of serving with her in the cabinet. I think this economic diplomacy it's a good thing, but it's even now the right thing to push because of what is happening. I mean, you're talking about more than $100 million that we're going to be losing. It's good to be honest with the Liberian people. This USAID thing is going to disrupt healthcare delivery in our country, is going to disrupt education services in our country, and so on and so forth. Even elections. If we don't pivot right now and begin to think outside of the box and create and be innovative in terms of raising money to support these programs. So can you bring us up to speed? What have you done to date on this new economic diplomacy front that we can look to over the next 3-4 years, that Liberia would benefit from it? It will help to fill some of the gaps that the USAID action would be causing us.
Thank you, Senator. On the first point in relation to the question on Russia, if you can recall, there was some frenzy around Russia some months back last year when we participated in the Russia-Africa meeting with the participation of Mr. Nyeng. And we went to that meeting as part of the African bloc because we felt very strongly, especially if we're vying to be a member of the Security Council, we should be engaging with everybody. Liberia should have a relationship with all member states of the United Nations. To some degree, we will define what a relationship needs to be, but we should be talking to everybody. We went just to participate in that meeting with the African bloc in Russia, and it caused a whole frenzy. People were lambasting us for turning to Russia just because we went to participate in the African meeting. So I share this to say that the mindset in relation to bilateral relations and where the world is now in 2025, where we are right now, especially with the evolving multipolarity of the geopolitics. We like Liberians as a whole, we need to open our minds, similar to what you are saying, we need to open our minds to the vast world. Now, I link that to economic diplomacy. For us, economic diplomacy is opening that doorway and being more intentional about engaging foreign direct investment and handing them over to NIC and the relevant ministries and so forth to do their part. And what we've been doing, for example, intentionally, every country we go to, even if it's for UNSC campaigning, we engage Chamber of Commerce or the Business Association and say, Liberia is open for business. Concretely, I can tell you in the last 2 months, we've received at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs companies that we engaged last year who've come to engage with NIC and others now, or the sectoral ministry. Just today before coming here, I received a team from Burkina Faso. Within 1 month, the team from Burkina Faso is here. They're interested in the bank. They're interested in other areas of investment. We're looking south because at the end of the day, we've always been looking to the West. And right on this continent, Africans are investing in Africa. And so we're being more intentional about it. In fact, I'm doing a memo to Chamber of Commerce, NIC, and Business Association today to inform them that we met the Malian head of the business association, who has interests, including in Farmington and other tourism and so forth. So this is actively happening. We are receiving delegations and handing them over to where they're supposed to go. It's too early to say what we have concretely materialized from that, but the engagement will continue, informing people that Liberia is open for business. We want to have investors from the continent. That's what's happening in Rwanda. You see now Rwanda, all Africans can go visa free because of that push for African investments. Africans have resources and can invest in this country and create jobs. We're also engaging with others as well. But economic diplomacy is important for development. And if we don't join forces with NIC, Commerce, Trade, and Commerce and Business Association and others to attract companies to Liberia, we'll find it difficult. Right now in Ghana, the Ghanaian our ambassador to Ghana is planning a investment roundtable there, inviting NIC and others to come and meet with businesses in Ghana that have Ghana thriving, encouraging them to come to Liberia. Also with Sierra Leone, we discussed implementing one common market. Talking to businesses, when you come into Liberia and Sierra Leone. So you're looking at the economies of scale for these countries. MRU is 60 million people. If we're looking at MRU as a block and talking to investors, that's what we're doing now. We're saying, come to Liberia as an entry point to Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone. So economic diplomacy is about us being intentional about supporting the efforts of the other ministries and sectors in getting investments to Liberia. And we look forward to all of you support in doing that. The more we can do this and investors come to the country and they are treated well, they don't experience extortion, they don't experience all kinds of things that will make them run from the country. The more we can create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, the better it will be for our people to create jobs, and that's the role we're trying to play.
Last question. In your opening, you told us that the embassies were experiencing capacity issue, particularly the U.S. If I can paraphrase what you said, I talked to you about the depth of capacity at our embassy in Washington. Besides the U.S., we have other key embassies around the world, in Europe, in Asia, and so on. What are you doing to address this problem? And do you see a future for Liberia in Latin America? And then finally, tell us about the MRU, because it's a big part of your regional diplomacy. And we'd like to know how you are working with your counterparts to resuscitate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. On the issue of Latin America, the discussions we've been having, especially in the wake of the Security Council campaign we've been doing, we realized that we have not tapped into the potential in Latin America, which we intend to do, starting with Brazil. But there are many other Latin American countries that we need to be engaging with. Also, even the Pacific, the islands and so forth, they'd be amazed on what we've been missing out, for example, with Barbados. We signed an agreement with Barbados now, but Barbados is interested in our sardines. They import all their sardines, and we have some of the best sardines in the world. Now, waters people take it and carry it to other parts of the world. We don't even see it on the shores of Liberia. So we're engaging with these countries with that outlook to strengthen, from economic diplomacy perspective, to strengthen trade and so forth. But in terms of investments, Latin America has huge potential that we have not tapped into, which we intend to tap into. Also, the point you make in relation to Latin America is very important. Also, beyond economic diplomacy, cultural diplomacy and other areas that can open up doors for engagement and for job creation. So we will be working on that. As we go through the UN Security Council campaigning process, we have identified some countries in Latin America that we'll visit to engage around the votes. Also, Ambassador Louis Brown will be meeting the entire Latin American bloc in New York as we're all campaigning and trying to strengthen some of those relationships. I I would say that I'm prayerfully optimistic that after 177 years,
Madam Minister,
unappropriated,
the finance minister came here and he just in passing top of prayer. He took the whole hearing, pin on top of prayer. Tell her what he doing. Okay.
let me say that we are very optimistic that with the campaigning we're doing, and you will see some of the countries we're visiting, for example, we're doing Burkina, Mali, Niger, we're being very intentional about the African bloc because Africa feels that many African countries have said they don't trust us, that we'll just follow the US and Israel.
Mali,
And
Burkina, Niger, are they happy with us?
Mali
In the
and
ECOWAS
Burkina.
bloc?
What I can say to you is that Burkina already has companies here today looking at investment, and it has been going very well, I must say. We are trying our best, and we hope that for the first time, being a founding member of the UN, we're the only founding member that has never sat on the Security Council for a full term. Never. We hope to correct that during this administration. This is not for President Boyka. It's not for Sarah Bachelet Nyanti. This is for Liberia. As a country void of politics, ethnicity, religion, it's Liberia. And every patriotic Liberian should want Liberia to be on the Security Council because it will open doors for us economically. What Sierra Leone is experiencing now, with everybody trying to get them money and trying to talk to them because they're on the council and people are interested in voting and so forth. This is what we want for Liberia. We want Liberia to be on that stage of global decision making and relevance to economic opportunities for the country.
Before we go to Senator Patikwa, Madam Minister, with all these things are happening and the government of the United States taking some shot at Liberia, why is your ambassador not approached yet in DC? And what has happened to the investigation of sale of diplomatic passport from the previous government? Where are we with that?
On the issue of Ambassador Conte taking office, we had resource constraint 1. Number 2, he had to go to Nigeria to be able to round up there because he had come to Liberia to serve at LU and he needed to go back to Nigeria to do the proper diplomatic process for rounding up. He'll be headed to the US as soon as possible. On the previous investigation on passports, I will leave DG Pearson to mention anything, but I believe that some of the discussions we are having, which we said we cannot have openly here, will necessitate close to conversation, but he can go ahead and comment.
So, Senator, as the minister said, we're able to do some background and we got sources. And these sources have been able to give us some information on the trend of the passports. So we don't want to explain that here. But we got sources, and the sources we've been working along with our partners. And then from there, maybe in-house, you'll be...
Mr. Pearson,
Yeah, yes, sir.
it's gone to 4 years. You inherited an issue, you committed doing your hearings for confirmation to follow this investigation and bring it to closure and hold people accountable. What's happening?
I don't want to explain in details here. Yes.
Security,
Please.
is there an ongoing investigation?
It is an ongoing investigation along with our...
How long has it been?
We've been on an investigation for about a month now.
This matter came up about 4 years ago, in 2020,
Yeah,
when you were NSA director. And you said you've been only about a month ago.
I don't understand which of the investigation you're talking about.
So which investigation you talking about?
Okay, the investigation I'm talking about is the issue of people selling and buying diplomatic passports.
So under
That's the
the
investigation
previous
part.
administration for which a former passport director was sanctioned by the US government,
Oh, okay, all right.
you were NSA director at the time.
Yes, I was.
And the
followed
government
case,
of
yeah.
Liberia honored President Weah with Kimaya as Minister of Foreign Affairs, announced the launch of an investigation. During your confirmation hearing under this administration, these issues were raised, and there were commitments to resurrect those issues for closure and for people to be brought to book where applicable. Where are we?
That investigation talking about each reference to one proof, that investigation was completed and forwarded to court. You ever went to court? That investigation was sent to court.
The sale of passport involving
Yep.
the Ministry of Foreign Affairs alleging with Dewey Gray and Comfort Sawyer.
No, I'm not part of the investigation, but I know the issue of Yemplu, we sent it to court.
So there is no active investigation regarding that issue that led to the sanctioning of Wamplu.
The issue of Wamplu, that was we had a team that came from the States, and we all worked together, referenced that investigation. And so a report was made, forwarded to the Ministry of Justice, and how Yemplu went to court.
Okay, the Committee on Security and Judiciary will follow up.
Thank you.
Senator Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine is just only 3 concerns. I will just ask all of them so that you can respond to them. One is, I've heard you indicated about 3 different times the part of business entities coming from Burkina Faso to come to Liberia, and you also mentioned Mali and Niger. Since ECOWAS is an economic community, countries that you've named, businesses coming from there, will it not hamper our relationship with ECOWAS? That's number one. Number two is, let me be direct with the issue of the passport. Many previous speakers really dealt with it. But to be specific, as senator, can I use my diplomatic passport as a result of your engagement to go to the United States now? Number two, my last one is, since you are responsible for economic cooperation and countries that are supporting us in our development process, is there any information that you have regarding our relationship with India, for which the Bari Island issue has not been fostered? Is there any information that you got regarding China, for which the overhead bridges that they said were going to start in March cannot start? Is there any information for the project that in Southeast cannot start? What are the process and what are the factors that are hindering these commitments made by these international countries? Thank you.
Thank you. Senator, can I please? Okay. Senator Cyrus, can I please be allowed to make a comment on Senator Cornyn's last question on MRU before I address Senator Patekwa's?
Minister.
Okay. On the MRU, Senator Cornyn, very important question. Liberia has played a leading role in MRU's revitalization. And Liberia convened a meeting here for the purpose of revitalization in 2024. And Liberia subsequently has been pushing the strengthening of the MRU. We were able to, in 2024, were able to lead a process for the 4 foreign ministers to sign a roadmap with Morocco, which includes funding for the construction of the Mano River Union Secretariat. That effort has been acknowledged by different MRU countries, where Liberia is leading on the efforts of strengthening the MRU. So just wanted to come back to that, Senator. On the point of ECOWAS and Burkina Faso, Mali, Liberia is one of the countries that was, I think, we were the first to raise the need for dropping the sanctions on those countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Guinea. In the plenary at ECOWAS, when this was discussed, we requested that the sanctions be lifted. We also have been doing backdoor diplomacy. We've even offered Liberia as a host, Monrovia as a host city for a meeting of foreign ministers for the AES countries and ECOWAS for us to discuss the implications of the withdrawal. I'm happy to announce that the Burkina Faso Captain Traoré was open to this and happy about it. I just met the Malian transitional president. He also was open to it, and he said it's in line with the discussions that we're having. So Liberia is playing a role in terms of trying to engage and make sure, as I said to them, I will say here, beyond organizational structures, we are families. And Liberia has tribes that came from the Malian Empire, mine being one of them, the Vai tribe. We are families within West Africa. So whether you have ECOWAS, you don't have ECOWAS, you still have families, you have countries, you have territories that need to be able to relate. We have over 40,000 Burkinabes in Liberia. So how do we have movements of people? How do you have movements of people outside of the ECOWAS structure? We have to sit and discuss as foreign ministers, and they were all open to this. It's something that we're discussing with ECOWAS actively, how we can engage. So there's no issue with us engaging with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger as bilateral, in terms of bilateral cooperation, no issues at all. And ECOWAS has made it very clear, even the ECOWAS protocols still apply for the free movement of people amongst the original ECOWAS countries. You can feel free to use your diplomatic passport. But let me say, to ask for visa for the US, but let me clarify something. Diplomatic passport does not necessarily mean that you have a diplomatic visa. Very important distinction. People think that once you have a diplomatic passport, you automatically get a visa because it's a diplomatic passport. No. The purpose of your visit determines the type of visa you're supposed to have and the type of passport you can put the visa in. And what makes this up? So if the purpose for which you go into the country is not diplomatic, they will not give you a diplomatic visa. They will ask you to go for a regular tourist visa. But yes, you can feel free to use it for diplomatic purposes. Also, I've clarified with the US counselor that the legislature, the Senate, the senators and the representatives, you have constituents in the diaspora. And one of the strategies of this administration, the president's vision, his priorities for the AID, is that diasporans will play a critical role. And so the legislature needs to travel to meet constituents in the US, and this should be considered as official because your constituents are in that particular country. We've clarified this with them, and we hope it has helped to improve on the understanding, because when we had this discussion, they said they weren't aware of this, that the constituents need to be engaged. I said diaspora relations is part of one of the strategies. We feel that if diasporans invest in Liberia, will help the development agenda. So I hope this helps also with you all trying to engage as for your travel. On the bilateral cooperation, you talk about China, India, and so forth. I will let Ms. Onion come in relation to that. But I can say that we've engaged with India. India had made some promises before that were never materialized. We have had recent meetings with India to discuss it. There was a 60 million they wanted to give to build a conference center, so forth and so on. Different promises they had made years ago. We've revitalized those discussions with India, and it's ongoing. Go ahead.
That process is also ongoing, Honorable Senator. As you've seen over time, some of the areas have been cleared. So that is now with the Ministry of Public Works to continue the engagement with the contractors and the Chinese embassy. Relations with China has been elevated to a strategic partnership since the last FOCA, the Forum on China-Africa Relations. And the Chinese they have proposed to Liberia to sign an economic partnership agreement and investment promotion agreement. And these two agreements have been reviewed by our agencies.
What was it before the strategic level?
Well, it was just a bilateral and diplomatic relationship. So the elevation to a strategic partnership gives you access to so many other opportunities, and you could sign economic partnership agreement, investment promotion agreement, which elevate the relationship between your sectoral agencies and Chinese sectoral agencies. Then with other countries, we just met our strategy in buttressing the Minister's Economic Diplomacy Initiative. We've been meeting some embassies here asking about opening of new frontiers in our relations, from in addition to our diplomatic relations. we should have more engagements on the economic front. So over the last 3 weeks, we've had meetings with the Egyptian, the Indians, and the British, mainly on investment promotion between Liberia and their countries. With Morocco, we've gone even further. The Moroccans invited us. In January, we took an entire economic delegation to Morocco, where we met strategic stakeholders. There were private sector. Our Chamber of Commerce was in that delegation. We met stakeholders, we met factories in agro-processing, we met oil producers, and then other traders. So that relationship is quite ongoing. And then a Moroccan delegation or business delegation from Morocco is expected to come here on speculation in April. And then they will be visiting the agricultural sector, the mining, and the oil producing sector, LPRC, LEC, NOCAL, the agro-industrial processing companies, the smaller ones that we have, and also producers of perhaps agricultural products to export to the Moroccan market. That discussion is quite advanced. So when they come, we expect them to sign a partnership with companies, not necessarily with the government. And then the Egyptian, we've also started a discussion with the Egyptian to invite an Egyptian trade delegation to Liberia. They have initially invited us to Egypt, but because of the position of our mission, that mission is severely understaffed at the moment. So we've told them to wait until the ambassador can be appointed and support staff. So we are expecting that mission to come to Liberia and visit strategic sectors and explore opportunities. There is also the discussion with India on establishing a diplomatic presence for Liberia in India, which will also facilitate or accelerate our economic engagement with the Indians.
Just to add also, in terms of the request for diplomatic missions, we're asking the countries as part of the bilateral cooperation to give us a chance to give us a residence for ambassador and a vehicle at least for 3 years until we can, take responsibility. So that's part of the bilateral request that we've made to these countries, and we're hoping that they will honor it. And lastly, I just want to add, Senator Cornell, on economic diplomacy. I didn't mention this. A very big investment meeting is being planned in Brussels by our embassy there. It's been delayed because of the need to get the ambassador there first before we have it. But we've also we had discussions with the EU about this, and now initially it was for Benelux, just Belgium and Netherlands and Luxembourg, but now for the entire EU, looking at having European companies coming to Brussels to engage with Liberia to invite them.
This is good because I think Europe has overtaken the US and China as Liberia's most trading partner. Most of our exports today are going there. I think the World Bank recent report showed that. So I think this is really good in your economic diplomacy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we hope to have it. We hope to have it in sometime between April and July. The team is working on it, waiting for the ambassador to arrive. The concept paper has been done. When I was in Brussels, I engaged with the EU on it. They were excited.
You invite the Foreign Affairs Committee there and the Commerce Committee.
Yes, we'll definitely look to make those invitations, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Minister panel to you and your team. So I'll be engaging you on a series of issues. Minister, what's the budget for your Security Council bid?
The budget that's required for us at a minimum.
Now what is required? What's the budget? What are you operating in?
$200,000.
That's the budget you're operating?
Right now, yes.
And you expect to succeed? Now I understand why you say you have to pray.
So, Senator, we are applying many strategies. We didn't feel that the lack of resources should stop us from pursuing what's best for Liberia. And so what we've done is, for example, you will see us with campaign materials and so forth. We were able to get campaign materials by support of in-kind support from some countries. We also are having a intentional fundraiser being led by the president to look at support for the Security Council seat. The discussion that we had, it was a national committee set up by the president. The discussion was held there, and the discussion was that the recommendation was that there should be a recast of the budget to look at the needs for the Security Council seat and just have a recast in the budget. That was prior to the USAID situation. And so, Senator, what I can assure you is that we are working diligently. We are using opportunities of other travels and other meetings and so forth to link the Security Council meeting to it. We have written to all of the countries. We are using all mechanisms to communicate and to campaign. And Senator, with the support of this legislature, when the budget is being looked at and being recast, the campaign period between now and June is not the major issue. The major issue for us will be to have the capacity to be able to hold the seat, to be able to operate and be able to perform at a high level. And we believe that with your support, with your partnership with the legislature, that we can get the resources that we require to have the staffing in New York, the staffing here at home, and to be able to serve. It's a 3-year period that when we win the elections in June, as of July, the Security Council will be trying to build capacity for our team. They'll be doing it in New York and here. They expect that by October we'll be seated to start observing, to then have the seat fully from January 2026 to December 2027, and then another 6 months for the winding down. So it's a huge feat, but the benefits will outweigh, and I believe that we'll get the support, resources made available. Liberia will stand to benefit in every way.
Prime Minister, I saw your visit, I followed your visit to Burkina Faso. Do you care to tell this committee about the composition of your delegation to Burkina Faso?
My delegation to Burkina Faso literally was only me initially, but because we had the president's special envoy on investment and a special envoy on tourism who were already in the area, I asked them to join me, but my delegation was only me in the security because of the resource constraint.
So those 2 envoys you took to Burkina Faso are some of the issues we're having with our passports. We need to talk to the 2 of them. They go in aircraft, they put a champagne by them, they take their red diplomatic passport, put it there, cross their leg to show the world that they have diplomatic passport. So you need to talk to them. And when you have these kind of people on your delegation, it doesn't show well for Liberia, because the representation of our foreign image have not been good. No diplomat or ministry or official of government should go sit on the aircraft, hold your champagne glass, then you put our diplomatic passport, then you take picture, and you put it on Facebook to show that you have diplomatic passport and you're official of government. And these are the people you chose to take the Burkina Faso to lobby for a Security Council seat. So I don't know how serious you are for that.
Point of clarification, Senator. I didn't take them to Burkina Faso,
But they were on your
and I
delegation.
didn't take them to lobby for Security Council seat. And the only reason why they were in that presidency was because of the fact that they were meeting companies there, and I wanted Captain Traore, because of the nature of the kind of governance you have in Burkina Faso, I wanted him to be aware.
Prime Minister, when
of
you went to see the president of
conversation.
Burkina Faso to lobby for a Security Council seat, they were with you to see the president of Burkina Faso.
No. They were not with me when I lobbied for the Security Council seat. It was a one-on-one meeting with me and Captain Traore. Only me. I was the only one on the delegation to go and meeting for the Security Council seat.
So they never met the president of Burkina Faso with
They
you?
met him, but the meeting I had with him was alone on the Security Council.
Okay. I mean, so we'll talk about the ECOWAS institution. And I honestly want you to be a little bit aggressive about it. You have good network in the region. And as you know, both Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire are lobbying for WAHU, the West African Health Organization, which obviously could put Liberia on the second layer, or in the second layer, taking into consideration our contribution with community levy and our size of government. But we stand a great chance of getting the youth and sports if we were to lobby for it. But equally so, the president of the ECOWAS Commission comes from Gambia and also will be lobbying for that ECOWAS institution to be hosted in the Gambia.
Sarah Vescolianti.
Is she your boss?
Yes.
Have you attended the Foreign Service Institute?
I'm attending now.
I will encourage you to do better so you will learn how to respect the minister. Information coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as regards your behavior and conduct to the minister does not reflect well of the assistant minister. I will publicly encourage you to take note of that. Thank you. No. Prime Minister, you talked about the Directorate of Passport and Intelligence. Is there a new nomenclature or is existed in the past?
So in the past, we have had the Bureau of Passport and Visa, and then working with legal, the Minister for Legal, and then you had Visa move on the protocol, and it was kind of scattered. And because of the security nature of passports, we felt we needed a new department that would encompass passports, visas, and intelligence to back up the issuance of passports and visas like it's done in other countries. And so with that, a new department was created. Governance Commission has given the approval for the department. The approval came without the nomenclature of diplomatic intelligence. We're going back to ask them to add that, but it's been approved with a new department headed by the Director General at the level of Deputy Rep. Under that is the Director of Passport, Director of Visa, and Director of Diplomatic.
Have you informed the Foreign Relations Committee that you work with that there's a new department, a new nomenclature for the purpose of coordination, such as strategic acquisition or sensitive change?
I had at some point discussed with the chairman that this was work in progress and so forth. We got the approval last week. We have now officially informed you. We're right officially informed.
Another issue, Madam Minister, regarding passport. A company called Blackwell has a contract with the Salif government for passport owned by Hassan Musawi. The contract, after they procured the passports brought into the country, the contract was terminated. And you brought a bulk press owned by Kofi Buckman. Today, you are talking about canceling that contract again. And I'm sure you'll go to the company in Austria. But when the time comes, we'll find out which company will that be. You think this brings credibility to our passport? That you sign contract with one company, executing it, you cancel it. You go to another company, they executing it, you cancel it. Now you're already in discussion with Austria. They will win a bid, we all know that one. Then they will start issuing passport again. How does that bring credibility to our passport?
Senator, to be very honest with you and be transparent with you, it's the first time hearing about this Blackwell contract that was terminated under Madam Salif. I'm not aware of it. We've met Bulk Press implementing a contract that they do not implement by themselves. They are part of an arrangement with others, and from the security perspective, we do not own the source code. As a country, we do not own the source code. So from the security perspective, we all should be concerned that regardless of whether or not there was a backward before, then I was appealed to look at the fact that as a country, we don't have anybody can use that system and issue passports from anywhere in Liberia's name. So it's in our interest to look at a system where we have more control and where we can at least strengthen the security aspect of passport issuance. WordPress can also apply if they have the capacity to produce what we want to produce. But we're looking now at WordPress has too many leakages. They have the source code, we don't all have the source code, they have another company that does the work with them as well. It's not the best for security enhancement, and I think we should all work together to strengthen this. We've had a discussion with WordPress. I must admit, I think DG will admit also they've been trying to work along with us to strengthen, but there's so much more that needs to happen.
Mr. Chairman, not to go back too much, but I still have one more question. The ministry explanation on the Japanese rice wasn't quite satisfactory. And said a local did a follow-up on it, where a company bid for 12.50 or 12 something, other one for 11. Then the ministry reached a decision. So I don't know what they need a procurement process to be able to reach all of those decisions. Mr. Chairman, I'll be recommending that since the right having come, maybe it's better to do retender. Because when we listen to the person in charge of the rights on OKFM, I don't know if you listened to that recording, it was damaging. It was very damaging for the country. And in all of our diversity, our diverse views, be it opposition, be it ruling party, when it comes to the national security interest or the development agenda of this country, we should speak in one tone. And the presentation on the radio, the airway of the administration of the rights was very damaging. If you haven't listened to it, I would encourage you to listen to it. And if there's anything we can do to have credibility in it, because it was clear, and I don't want to be personal, but like the deputy minister said, the Liberian-owned company didn't have warehouse. In the next one, they got warehouse. It's associated with the managing director of the port. He withdrew his interest from the company. And I strongly believe that there should be a policy around the Japanese rights or those kind of donations to Liberia that should be limited to Liberian companies. Not to say it must be sold in 6 months so you can give it to anybody. Then what are we? I mean, this is something that Liberians should be given that other companies do it. You look up for your national. But we can't say anybody can do it, anybody can sell it, anybody can check it, anybody can do it. I think it's wrong. And I think the application of the funds need to be, we must have a set policy. But when you spoke, you have one set of policy. When your deputy spoke, you had another set of policy. So I think we need to look at that.
Thank you, Senator. Just to clarify a few points, there's only one policy document that guides the implementation of that program. It's the management guidelines that was developed back under the executive administration. There's only one set of documents. That's one. The second point is the reason why we asked the Secretary to open up the bill is because we wanted Liberian companies to apply. Because those that have benefited from it over the years have been registered by Commerce as foreign companies. We wanted Liberian companies to apply. The third point here is